So I would like to start the show with the question what people are most struggling with when it comes to contemplating a career change.
So I want to explain a little bit about myself. I'm a money expert and a mental fitness guide, and I work with people who want to make a career change. How am I different from a career coach? Is sometimes people don't know really what they want to do, so they got to like really overhaul a lot of their skills and take more time, or they want to get a job, say in the federal government here in America. That's a very specialized thing, as it is in other countries if you want to get into a specific government job. Other times, like if you want to like have a specific roadmap and you're looking for specific career mentors, that's when you can hire a career coach. But for somebody like me, I am where I am best, suited, if you will, to help my clients is somebody who already kind of knows what they want to do, because they are like starting off with that question of like, I can't do this, whatever this current job is, this current career is, I can't do this anymore. And can I start a new career? Because I help them answer that incredibly important question. If your money was no object, what the heck would you be doing with it? And and that's a very different money psychology of like, I just need to get a job, or I've got to stay on the path and be partner by the time I'm 40, or whatever it is. But it's usually somebody who could have been a previous artist or musician. They might have wanted to become a doctor, but they had to become a lawyer, or they really wanted to become an entrepreneur, but they just didn't know how to do that because they didn't have enough role models, enough support. And it's kind of like, how do you want to do this? So that's how I step into it, because I help people get to a deeper conversation with themselves, but also show them that this is really just some simple mechanics of retraining your brain so that you can start making better decisions. Because as a money expert, I know quite a few things about how money is marketed and what people's expectations are about money. But more importantly, I understand that people can go up and down with their money. And if you want to be a little straighter, because stuff is still going to go up and down, even millionaires and billionaires have their ups and down days. You want to go a little more straighter and not be so worried about market fluctuations if you're investing, housing fluctuations if you own a home, or just basically, like, oh, my bank account seems to be doing a lot of fluctuations. Maybe I'm not looking at my numbers the right way and not, making better and smarter choices, because, here in America and Canada, I don't know entirely about Europe, but people have terrible Amazon habits, like terrible Amazon habits. And, like there's like 15 packages showing up a day and you're like, are you selling stuff on Amazon? And they're like, no, I just need to buy this stuff. Are you remodeling your house? Nope, I just need to buy this stuff. And you're like, wow, that's a lot, 7 days a week, stuff coming in.
Oh, that's definitely not only US and Canada. I think it's a global thing that once a person gets into the buying habit or even gets addicted to buying, it is quite difficult to get out of it if you don't have a partner in whatever form or shape that can get you out of it. So I think it's quite crucial to have kind of financial literacy behind you, so to speak, to be fit in managing your finances. And I'm quite curious to know how you got started and what was the pivotal moment for you where you decided, I will be a money expert or a money coach.
So here's how my story kind of went. So I trained as a mental health and substance abuse counselor. I still am one. I didn't give that up. I definitely felt like that's been a calling in my life. But I had a job. I was doing fine. And then my mother got sick. My father was ill with Alzheimer's, and he passed away when I was in just out of undergrad, like a year or two out. No, a few years after undergrad. So I was still very young in my career. So it did impact me, but like from like starting a career path, it didn't really change me too much. But when I was, I was in my 30s, and my mom, she was very sick, and it really altered things because I was married, and I have, family. And then I was trying to how am I going to do this? My mother was across the country, and it was just like, oh no. So I would kind of fly in when I could to, see what I could do to help out. I was, doing a lot of the phone calls, dealing with other family members that were doing the primary care. It was exhausting. And that started to impact me. But it's really after she died that I found out a lot of the secrets, financial secrets. That's all I really will say about that.
Mm-hmm.
That happened with my mother's estate, and I was just it really threw me for a loop. And I had been thinking more and more about how I would like to maybe start a business, but I really wasn't entirely sure on that. And so I started, and I was still like, kind of working and starting the business, and kind of working and starting the business, and it was coming along. But one of the things that happens is that you are your own worst enemy or your best cheerleader, and if you don't heal your worst enemy, you're going to hear that more often. So I was up and down in my business. I had not been like that really in my personal life. I had always been like, oh, I made money and that was it as an employee. But it was very different as a business owner. So around 2018, I'm also a dancer. I study five rhythms, which is a collective barefoot experience. It's nothing is choreographed. You get to dance in groups of people, and I think I was really lucky that I pursued all the dance workshops that I could go to before the pandemic, because a lot of people didn't have a hobby or they didn't have anything to go to. And I was like, oh, well, we're having another class online. I'm going to go join it. And people were like, I don't have that. And I'm like, yeah, it's helpful to nourish yourself in that way. But getting back to my road. So I walked into a dance class one day, and there was a flyer for Dance and Money. And I don't remember the title. And I was like, I need to go. And so it was 4 days, and it was 2.5 hours away. And I got my first taste of working with a financial or a money coach, and having a deeper understanding of what money had looked like in my own psyche and what I was doing and where I could go next. So I basically studied for about a year with a money coach in dance. So we were embodying things and learning things. And of course, the group was massive when we first started, and it got much smaller towards the end. So we were probably about 2/3 less. And that's kind of normal because, life happens. This is, again, before the pandemic. So around 2019, the end of it, I was like, I think I want to become a money coach. And then 2020 hit, and I went, probably not this year. Probably not. This is not the year to do this. I was super busy dealing with a lot of mental health and substance abuse stuff. So around 2021, I finally had the opportunity. It was like, now or never, let's do this. So I went into money coaching school, and that is when I realized, oh, I've been doing this for years in my private practice, and I didn't know that. So I'd already done it for like 10 years. And I thought, everyone was doing this. But no, turns out, no, they weren't. So I learned a lot about, again, that money, brain, psyche, and then how to work with people. So I had finished my money coaching, and I was working on, my social media and all that good stuff on my website. I was very excited. And then I had these two coaches during the pandemic for much more what I call woo-woo. Like one does ancestral lineage healing. I know, amazing, right? And she's also she helps women write books and things like that. And then the other one, she's a shaman, and she's also doing peer recovery for folks who are trying to recover from substance abuse and mental health. And they were like, don't you want to try this mental fitness coaching program? And I was like, nah, I think okay, I'm kind of coached out right now, in terms of school. And they were like, come on, we can do it together. We'll be what we call a little pod. And so as we did in the pandemic, we joined another group. And it turns out, I think I got the most out of it, partly because I have trained as a counselor, but I also understood, how quickly things can shift for clients. And I was like, oh, this is what I need to do. So then I decided, that's it. I'm going to become a mental fitness coach and a money coach. And somehow I'm going to put it together. I don't know how, but so that's kind of what led me to it. So I would say, the big pivotal moment was walking into a dance studio and going, that says me on the, I know it says me on that. And I went, but then also just having my coach friends just gently kind of say, come on. And then I was like, fine, all right. And then just like, oh, I do need to be here. So it's saying yes to opportunities, whether it's like, absolutely, it's right in front of my face. And then, well, you keep mentioning it for the 10th time, I guess I'll join.
That is so interesting, how you could say the universe works sometimes, that it kind of delivers what you have intuitively been calling. it to deliver, but maybe have been putting stones in your own way. Sometimes we do that.
Yes.
And you mentioned something that I'm very curious about. You said rewiring the money brain. And what does that actually mean, and how does it look like?
Rewiring the money brain. So we're all born with a money brain. Now, if you go to a neurologist, they're going to say you don't have one. And so let me clarify what I mean by that more from a social pop psychology way. We all have a brain that will give us, if you will, the good information and the not so good information. And it is our life experiences and oftentimes our trauma that will inform us what we do with what could be a good thing or not so good thing. And so when I trained in money coaching school, we worked a lot more with the limbic system. And so like the three parts of the limbic, and honestly, if you're somebody who's super neurology focused, you're going to love that approach. But most people don't. Most people can't absorb it. So what I do is I talk about the left and right sides of the brain. And like all of a sudden it was like, talk about marketing, people get it. So what I often remind people is on the left side of our brain, particularly in terms of language, we focus more on the details, the logic. We focus more on the fear. We focus more on like, this is what the picture looks like. This is all the information, the data. This is what we've got. But it's on the right side is where we actually do the problem solving. This is where we can make the money. This is where we can envision. This is where manifesting will work or it won't. So that is, we're dealing more with the empathy for ourselves, sometimes others, situations. It is also being that ability to navigate. So, where the heck are you going? I mean, you ask somebody with and I know this, what I call an unhealed or broken money brain, ask them how they're going to project their money into the future just for a year. It doesn't go well. It doesn't. I mean, they have good intentions, but it doesn't go well. But it's also about this piece of getting curious with information before judging it. We don't do that. We want to treat things more from a curiosity perspective, because that means the right side of the brain is getting activated and you have this opportunity to rewire it. So we use specific, really simple tools, and I can help people be rewired in just under 90 days in about, it's like 10 weeks to get them going where they want so they can actually build a financial path. Folks who work with me, you don't have to hire a financial planner or a financial advisor after I'm done with you. That's all a choice. You can, because they often offer services or products that you can only buy through somebody like that. So if you want specific insurances or whatever, specific bonds, etc. But that's changing in the world, that technically you could do it on your own if you have the time and the bandwidth and the curiosity to learn. Otherwise, if you don't want to know all that stuff, which is totally fine, you can hire the right person. And I really can't help but stress that, because I've met more people with a broken or unhealed money brain. They hire the wrong people and then they get stolen from or scammed too often.
Yeah, very true. And what would you say, based on your experience, are the three major negative beliefs that people have about money?
Well, it's let's see. So it's comparison, number one. People are often judging themselves against somebody else. Social media is nothing but competition. So you're like comparing, and then it's like, I should do better than this person. So it's that comparison competition thing. But then it's also this really, this scarcity thing. Like there's never enough. And who makes this up? It's actually people who are often the millionaires and the billionaires often will report that they can't afford the taxes. If they had to pay the tax rate for what they make, they wouldn't have the money, and then they couldn't have jobs. That's a load of malarkey, to use my Irish ancestry. It's a load of malarkey. That's not true. Amazon doesn't pay taxes. Who came up with that plan? Jeff Bezos.
That's so
and
true.
his team. So when other people get into a financial pinch, I'm like, yeah, because the way the money system has been set up, or what we've been told, again, this repeated sort of hypnotic suggestion of, none of us have enough. Not true. No, we got to look at, what the comps are for our real estate, whether it's commercial or personal. Yeah, okay, it's okay to compare. But if you need to get a particular price for your house, you probably will get it if you're tuned in and you know the time to sell, or buy. Because I've seen people in, down markets and, up markets get the house that they need for the money that they have. Oh, wow. How'd that happen? No, they didn't listen to everything else that's out there. They paid attention to themselves and had the conversations. I mean, it's also this thing of, if you're constantly competing with somebody else who's pretty much invisible, most of these competitors are invisible. If it's people within your own family or in your own company, you know, sometimes people are better at the job or they're better at the money. You can listen and learn and see if that any of that information is helpful. But again, like I've seen many times in families, there's one, maybe two people that do outstanding with the money. And it's often because they got really good breaks, meaning they started getting a job that paid them way more than what the other family members were getting paid. And then maybe they moved a little bit further away, so they weren't sort of absorbed into a lot of the day-to-day family drama, so they were able to figure out their net worth and save and do all that stuff because they were kind of on their own. So then people are like, well, your uncle or your aunt is very wealthy, or they married a whatever, a rich guy or a rich woman. It's like, well, yeah. And then maybe they had to figure other things out in their life because they weren't trying to take care of you guys.
And based on these struggles and negative beliefs that people seem to have, if you could formulate one or three wishes to improve people's money mindset or the problems that people experience around money, what would that be?
So, like, my goal when I decided I wanted to do this money coaching, mental fitness thing was that I wanted to help people break down the barriers, that competition, the comparison, the scarcity, so that they, themselves, and it doesn't have to be painful, deep emotional process, so they can finally be happy. They can finally use that ingenuity, that wisdom, and, have the energy to go do what they want to do with their money. Because a lot of people are like pretty much clinically depressed at work. They don't like their job. Or if they are working in a business and it hasn't been going well, nothing's more frightening, in my opinion, when you're in the process of building or you built something and then it starts to fall apart. People who are popular on social media are terrified of being quote unquote canceled. My opinion is nobody cancels you but you. There are plenty of people out there that stick to whatever their divisive rhetoric is, and they move along just fine.
And when we think about people who are now transitioning careers,
Right.
how can they do that without risking financial instability or breaking the bank?
I love that question because, again, if you're from a scarcity, comparison, competition, you're thinking you have to do it all on your own. And I kind of want to say, no, you want to start getting prepared. So, first of all, you got to look at your numbers. So, I brought up the Amazon habit, or if you have a coffee habit, or I don't know, a McDonald's habit. Is there any way you can just cut back so that you know what your numbers are? And then the important question is, what are you going to do with that money? Where is it going to go? Are you going to put it in a high yield savings account, which will earn you 3% instead of a regular bank? That's one possibility. So you start to put money, even if it's $20, where are you going to put it? Put it someplace that you can't necessarily pull it directly out. You put it somewhere so it's going to build in some way. I also ask people to well, what do you think your financial path is going to look like? When I work with people, I say a plan that this is something you want to do in the next year, maybe two, maybe not 5 years down the road. And when you're going to develop that financial path, what do you think you're going to need? Now, what people will always say is money, but really what people need is time and space. Because if you're working full time and going to school full time, there's not a lot of time and space. Like, it's a lot. If you are switching careers, so you are lucky enough that your current career set, meaning will get you another job. So if you've always worked in the arts and now you're just getting an education cert and then you'll become an art teacher, that's fantastic. I love that. So that might not take you very much. You just have to figure out how you're going to pay for daycare or those kinds of things. So you're looking for those supports and those resources. It could be family. It could be that you're going to, get part of what I call like a mom collective, which I've seen. I've seen it that even single mothers will like literally move in with another single mother, assuming all the kids get along, and they will like rent an apartment or a house, and they will combine forces instead of like, I have to keep paying people for these things. Is it a glamorous way to do it? No. Is it a smart way to do it? For some mothers, it certainly is. And it's great. And then what I always like to say is who would you like to help you? So, you know, a lot of times when people are super stressed, they're like, I just want my fairy godmother to just, you know, turn this place into a pumpkin. Well, remember, you know, the whole point of Cinderella was only for a few hours. And then, you know, it took them a while to figure out where she was, and all he had was a shoe. So, I mean, I'm just saying. So it might be asking for financial assistance. If you really need something that is beyond your current financial thing, like you really do want to become a doctor and you're going to need somebody to help support maybe finishing your undergrad, or looking into helping support you through medical school, then I would say, you know, have you thought about an angel investor? Now, there are actually websites that you can apply for an angel investor. I think it's like angelinvestor.com or .org. But the truth is, people who get angel investors, it's because of who they know. And I'll give you an example. So a lot of times when you are busy, you know, talking about, hey, I'm really excited. I'm going to start my own business and I'm going to finish up this, I don't know, project management or business course in school. So I'll have more knowledge about how to run a business. So I won't be so overwhelmed. People will start thinking of you, and you're like, well, you know, do you have a GoFundMe account, or do you know, because people will Venmo you $500. You'd be amazed to finish a program, something small like that. Here's where it can go wrong. If you have an unhealed or broken money brain, you use that for something else, because you really are much further behind, and it's that. So there was a woman, she was a young lady, early 20s, and she was working a waitress, and this older gentleman really liked her, didn't have kids, and he paid for her entire schooling. She wanted to become a nurse.
Wow.
He
Awesome.
set up an account for her to go to school. Her family could not afford that. But that is what I mean. And then how it really works from a money perspective is, if an angel investor has invested in you, then it will be up to you to find somebody, once you've hit your goal, to invest in somebody else. Because then we don't feel so disconnected. And then I always remind people, like, if you want to start a business, or you're looking for a side hustle or something, or a particular contract, you know, that maybe will be steady money that you're looking for, is there some way you can partner with somebody else? Because a lot of times these opportunities are right here, but we're again in this, you know, comparison, competition, you know, scarcity hood that's over our head, that we won't even look up and realize, oh my God, 6 other people want to do this. Maybe if we got together and offered something really cool, or maybe we got together and met with a particular kind of business coach or career coach, then we would know what we could do. Like, we could pay for a group session or pay for a series of group sessions and get that mentoring that you need, so that you can make an offer. So then there you go. Oh, wow. Pretty cool. So I think that's really the important thing, is when you think outside the box and opportunities arise, and then you get to know what you want to do. The last thing I would say is that sometimes just getting an accountability partner, which those are free, you can get them in any Facebook group just about, or a coaching program if you're already involved. And, you know, again, accountability is not about whining. It's about, here's what you got done this week and what is it that you need to do. So you will continue your accountability to get it done, because that's the whole point, is to try to get it done within the next year, not maybe in 5 years.
So you said something interesting, the difference between kind of managing money, or the belief that you have to manage money in some way, and the contrary to that would be managing yourself. I personally believe that it is much smarter to think about it in terms of, you have to manage yourself, right? You don't have to, and that goes for everything in life. People also sometimes think they have to manage time. The most ridiculous phrase you can ever believe in, because you cannot manage time. It is there, and you cannot touch it, you cannot manipulate it. It's just there. Just like money, you cannot necessarily manipulate money unless you go in and you make money, which is illegal in most countries, at least to my knowledge. So you can only manage yourself, what you believe about money, how you have the capacity to control yourself in terms of what you buy, when you buy it, how you buy it, how much you buy, right? You recently mentioned the Amazon, right, the addiction that you almost can develop. if you have the accessibility to stores like that, right? With a simple click of a button, that thing arrives at your door. It's really driving addiction to the max, but it's not Amazon's fault. It's your fault, right?
Right.
And many people might hate me for this, but this is the truth. You need to have the ability to control yourself in certain situations. Either it comes to money, to time, to food, to other people, that you have standards and values and boundaries. And I think this is a whole pot that goes into it, that people are oftentimes not really aware of it, how much it actually takes to get to the money that you actually want. And they think, oh, I have to have an amazing job to get enough money, or to save money, right? Or I need to get a second job to save the money that I want for the house, the car, the travel expenses, whatever it is. But what had a profound impact on me personally, and this is many years ago, I was just starting my business. I found an entrepreneur, Lisa Nichols. This is her name. You probably know her, yeah. Many people know her. She's famous by now. But one story particularly helped me understand this money mindset from a different perspective, in terms of what are the possibilities you can open up yourself to in order to achieve something. And her story makes me cry every time. Like, she was just in the beginning of, well, she was a single mom too, and I could relate to that, first of all, and all the struggles that she went through were so similar to mine. And so when she started, she decided to go from a 3-bedroom house to a shared apartment with, it was even a smoker, right? And she had her baby already, Lisa, right? So she had to put the towels on the door to not get the smoke into the room with the baby, right? So she had to inconvenience herself in order to save money. And she had one job first, and then she made herself a rule to save 5% of everything that she earned and just send it to the bank. And she never opened up the reports that came in, right, to state how much she has saved, because she was so afraid that that money might be gone, right? As soon as she looks at the statement, that the money will burn, she called it, right? And then she got a second job, and then she applied another rule to herself to increase that saving number to 10%. Even though she didn't know how to calculate 10%, she kind of did what she felt was right. And what made me cry, and every time I hear that story, I cry again and again, because it shows how much she sacrificed for her dream, that she didn't even know what it was, right? She didn't know what she wanted, but she knew she wanted out of her career. She knew she was destined for more. And when she went into the bank, everybody knew her. She told her name. Hey, this is Lisa Nichols. I would like to look into my bank statement to see how much money I have saved. After 3.5 years, she went there to take a look. And everybody was like, oh my God, you're that lady. You're that save for my dream lady, right? Or saving for my dream lady. And everybody knew her because everybody was kind of processing her bank statements one or the other time. So when that lady actually gave her that check, she couldn't believe how much money she was able to save, because nobody in her family, nobody in her ancestry had so much money ever in history. And so she believed it was not even her money, right? She then said, oh no, ma'am, my name is so-and-so. This is not even my money. Please give me my bank statement, right? I just want to be sure that this is really my money. And everybody was tearing up and telling her, no, 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 this is your bank account. This is your money that you saved for. And everybody was like crying, you know, and she was crying as well, right? With her little son by her side. And she looked at the bank statement, and it was over 60,000 that she was able to save just by saving on the apartment, just by saving from going to the hair salon, doing her nails, doing whatever activities with friends or family. Of course, they hated that, but she wanted to cut back enormously to fund her dream. And she even wrote that on the check, fund my dream, and then the sum that she wanted to save, right? So that was something that she did, and it's so profound, right? That what you can actually achieve even without massive investments, because many people think I have to save $1,000 a month to make things work, or if they want a really expensive car and that's 50,000, 100,000, and they calculate I need massive amounts of money to save in my bank account to make it happen. But by cutting down what you're already doing that is not necessary, that is not funding your dream, I think will make a profound impact on your financials just in general. And when I started my business, there was also another guy that Alex Fischer, it's a German millionaire that wrote a book, a very famous one. He changed my money mindset so radically. It was possible for me to see outside the box, because what I believed about money so far was so wrong, was so limiting. And for the first time in my entire life and for my entire ancestry, who we don't have millionaires in our family, I'm the first one who's going on that path of entrepreneurship, of building businesses, that it was so new, so fresh, and I was so terrified at the same time. But he opened up my mind to a new world, and I can encourage everyone to get a mentor. Without mentors, you are really you are cuffing yourself down to your current situation. You are binding yourself to your past. But a mentor will take you to the future. That's what a mentor can do. And you also mentioned the collabs and the competition thing. I think this is also very interesting, that the moment you realize that all the competition you thought you had in reality are your friends, if you change your mindset, even your direct competitors can become your friends, because we all are paddling towards the same goal: fulfillment, happiness, peace, and all that stuff, right? So why not work together? And I love that you mentioned that we can actually look at our competitors not from that jealousy perspective, but from actually how could we work together to explode together, right? How can we join our forces, our geniuses together, and how can we create something incredible for the audience? This is something I notice a lot among other entrepreneurs, that they always think about themselves too much, right? Me included in the beginning, of course. It was all about me, all about me. How do I get XYZ? But once you shift that again, once you get rid of that knowledge, mindset, you actually realize it's never about you. Never. Any step you do in your business, it's never about you. Even though you are the receiver of the money, it's never about you. It's about how can you create something extraordinary for the world to see, for the world to follow, right? And you are just a medium to help people. That's all it is. What would you say are specific new skills that you find most beneficial for people who are aiming to empower themselves financially, and especially when it comes to changing their professional landscape and changing careers?
So one of the biggest things that I have seen is, if you really want to get into the world of entrepreneurship, you have got to really look at your ability, what I call money making skills. What the heck are they, right? What is it that you're really willing to do? So some of my most favorite people that I love, hearing about their not necessarily rags to riches story, but really how they just turned it around. Like, oh, I need to make money in my business. Maybe it's not well known enough. Maybe you're not as good with your marketing and your messaging, which is like everybody. Everybody's not great at it in the beginning, unless you've already owned a sales and marketing company. Come on, give me a break. Then of course you're going to be great at that, but you're not going to be good at other things. Um, like, what is it that you're willing to do? So I think her name is, Fabienne Fredrickson. She lives in Paris now. But she started off on the road to entrepreneurship, and I don't really remember like why it wasn't working. But as it often happens, if you don't have a consistent sales system and messaging and marketing, and I won't bore people on that, then you're just going to get client here, client there, maybe some money over there, money, and again, What I always like to ask people, do you want a side hustle? Do you want like just a part-time business? Do you just want a contract in addition to your job? What is it that you're looking for? So, but she really wanted to be an entrepreneur. So she was working, doing all kinds of things, what I call money making opportunities. So I think she was like a food tester, or she did some like cooking demonstrations and she made $50. And so she was like doing that. This is the days before people could drive Uber and Lyft and, Uber Eats, all that jazz, here in America. Like that stuff wasn't just like get in your car and drive. She lived in New York City. She didn't have a car. So she did stuff like that. I've met people who cleaned other people's houses, because they needed to make some money immediately or some cash instead of getting out all the money on the loans kind of thing or put it on a credit card. Sometimes you got to have the cash in order to fund it. But to go a step deeper than like emergency, oh no, money and, what else can I do? What are your money making skills? And this is a part of the money rewiring that I really work on with people, because some people are really good at copywriting and editing, and they'd be more than happy to hop on Fiverr and just get side hustle money. They'd be thrilled to do that. They'd just do that. And there are people out there that you and I know have made 100,000 in less than 6 months and then had to hire a team. And now they charge like $30 an hour and they pay their folks and they're happy with it because they answered that question of like, what do I want to do? How do I want to do that? Oh, I'm not really sure. I'm young, but I don't want to be broke, but I want to just go do some side hustle money. Wow, this is a lot of money that's coming my way. Wow, I'm getting paid. This is great. Okay, let me keep going. And then it was like, you have a business. And they were like, oh, okay, I got a business. Now I'm going to go make it a business. So is it something like that? And there are people that like judge me as soon as I, say, what is it that you'd like to do? Now, you don't have to hop on Fiverr. You could find another platform. You could go work for somebody if you want to do it one-on-one. These are all suggestions. But, a lot of times people, like they're in corporate America. I don't know exactly what they do, but they don't have a lot of what I call technical skills. They're like the person who wants to sit there and just have coffee with people. And I'm like, did you want to become a coach? Do you want to become a trainer? Do you want to speak? What is it that you want to do? Do you want to go become a travel consultant on the internet, and make money that way? You can go in that direction if you're more of a people person. Because a lot of people that say, oh, I'm IT and I just travel the world, does not always go well for them. They don't always necessarily get paid on time. And sometimes where they're at, the locals don't like them or they don't really like the place. Like if you are like, hey, I'm going to be in, what is it? I want to travel all the way to Europe and just, bum around Europe. And then if there's a climate disaster, no, another one, then you got to make it through that. So if it's too hot, too smoky, thanks to Canada's forest fires, oh no, that's a real thing. You might have to keep moving. You're like, oh, but I was supposed to be here for 3 months. Too late. That's going to cost you money. You got to go. So I think people don't realize that they're taking their own money problems that way. And when I've been on like the message boards in particular, I see, people who are much more people focused, but they think if they could just get a tech job, their life would be easier, but they don't really have the tech skills. They don't want to go back to school. And they think if they can just go live on a beach. And I'm like, man, every digital nomad I've ever met works crazy long hours, sleeps in between, works about 6 days a week, maybe has a whole day to themselves here and there. And I'm not complaining, but they're happy, but they always have to film every day what they're eating, what they're doing. Like they can't just sit in a room and just be themselves. So I think if you really want to get into the money-making skills, you've really got to get into is what would you like to do? And what do you already do? Because that book, what was it? It was written by Gay Hendricks, Your Zone of Genius. So a lot of people push really hard to get into the zone of genius, and I think that's fine. But if you don't know what you're competent at and what you excel at, those are probably some real money-making opportunities that can help bridge you to like, I want to become a 7-figure speaker on stages. It's like, well, that's a highly competitive market. You're going to need to write a book probably. And what else do you got?
Yeah, I find it interesting that you say you have to know yourself. That's also my approach when I coach clients, for example. The first thing that you really need to know if you want, for example, to expand into a global brand, that's a different goal that many, many people have, but approach in a very wrong way. They need to know themselves. So identity is kind of the crucial part, the core that you need to know in and out. Like, you need to get to know yourself. How are you interacting with yourself on an emotional, mental, and physical level? How are
Right.
you reacting to other people? How are you what is your personality just in general? Are you brave enough to dive into your traumas? Are you brave enough to dive into the things that you're good at, but also your liabilities, maybe your weaknesses? Are you brave enough to do that? If you don't know how to do that, then I believe your money game will always be weak. Because you can only operate in your genius zone from a point of knowing, from a point of I know who I am. And then only then, if you know who you are, you know where you're going. You can elaborate where you want to go, where you need to go. And you said something that you also need to kind of find out, are you a people person or are you more like an introvert, right? But also introverts can be people as well. Yes, introverts are really great for one-on-one. I'm extremely introverted, but when it comes to one-on-one, I open up, I'm in my zone. But as soon as you put me in front of a group, of course, I practice that a lot. So you would not necessarily think I'm an introvert, but it's more stressful for me. It's taking a lot of energy from me, right? And after that, I need like 3 weeks of just me, just lock me up in a room and that's just me and me reading music and writing and whatever, right? But no groups, please. No more than 2 people, please, right? For the next 3 weeks. But you need to know what kind of type you are and really realizing, is this your trauma response that you are introverted, or is this your real personality? Now, I think this also needs some work, right? And most people that have kind of some type of dreams, whether it's small or major dreams, they are scared to go there. But I think every financial literacy starts with your identity, because you need to clean up. You need to clean up radically everything that is inside of you that is hindering you from receiving what you deserve or what you are meant to get. Because from what my experience, by the way, also as a digital nomad, traveling around the world and meeting so many different people, is that every single person has a gift. I have not met one single person that did not have a gift. And maybe they don't know what it is, and maybe only I can see it. And they need to dig deep, and maybe it takes a couple of years to unearth it. But everyone has a gift, and you need to unearth that gift in order to receive that money. Because thinking only in terms of money, where do I get money? Where do I get money? Just selling stuff is like, it is the worst thing that you can do in this lifetime, from my perspective, in my belief. Because you're not born to just do stuff. You are born with a gift, and unless you unearth that gift, you will not be paid properly. So rather shifting also that perspective from where do I get my next paycheck, where do I get my next money, the worth of paying for rent and everything that I have, shifting that perspective on who can I serve today, because that will also lift the pressure of getting the money, right? And I think in the US, this talk is really profound and prevalent, that people talk about make money, go after money, hunt for money, right? This masculine energy for getting the bag, right? So I think they need to ease into a different perspective.
I agree. I wanted to comment on something about you said about like being the introvert and like you needing the space. Like this is the whole point of energy management, right? So when we can quiet down that fear, the anxiety, the despair, that feeling of stuck, then all of a sudden, boom, we have more mental energy to talk to people that we probably need to talk to. So I've met many people who are like, I can't do more than 3 like one-on-one calls in a week because they're exhausted. And yet you're like, well, the numbers are, if you want to run a business, you might have to talk to people about 25 a week. Maybe you need to find a way to either hire somebody to do a lot of the the chats or the emails, and then you actually have like 3 to maybe 5, actual quality conversations, and you just do your best for that and see where you go. And then they're like, oh, that's gonna be work. And it's like, well, it's a choice to set up systems to give you more energy. And it's okay to have a money goal. And it's okay to fail at the money goal. But if you don't like what the amount of money you're making again, and you're happier doing some stuff quietly online behind the scenes, then again, my question always comes down to, do you want a side hustle? Do you want a contract? Or do you want a business? Because that's all different in your money psychology. Most people in my experience, especially if they're just employees, they just want a contract. They want something that's going to pay them pretty steadily. It'll cover some stuff. They might be able to go travel, they'll have a little extra in savings, because a lot of times when people work 2 jobs, if they don't take all that money that they made in the job and put it away in some way, or pay off immediate problems and then put it away, is that their spending just goes up, and then they don't have the extra income, and then they get in more debt, because people can pay off debt in about a year to 2 years time. And then they'll go right back to spending, and then they'll go right back to more debt. And that's how they handle it. And that's why your money is like this. And then you wonder, by the time you get, it doesn't matter what age, but where did the money go? It's like, well, you spent it.
I am just wondering right now if there's a correlation between, and I always go back to childhood and parenting, because that's where basically it starts, where the human is being developed by the parents. Whether there is the correlation between how people or how children deal with food and parents deal with the food that children take in, and their money behavior.
There's always a correlation. I mean, money is actually part of our survival, part of our brain. Why? Because we have wired it that way. Now, I'm not talking about whether it's the US dollar, if it's a euro. I'm just saying, like, the ability to pay things and get something back is a sign of what? Survival. The minute you were stuck in a refugee camp and you were waiting for somebody to bring you rice and maybe some clean water, because that's all you're going to get today, you're in a very different mindset, and it impacts you in ways that you and I probably can't quite imagine. But you're sitting around waiting for somebody to see you as a human being and can give you more. Yeah, it's a lot. It definitely impacts us.
I would even go so far to say and correlate money directly to food, in terms of the way you have been brought up to manage food, because food is not fun. Food, in my perspective and experience and opinion, food is there to take care of your body, right? So whenever your parents kind of handled food situations and meals in a way that they allowed you to do anything with food, maybe you will learn to do just about anything with your money, right? Because money is also a resource that takes care of your body, that takes care of your life. Without money in this world and dimension, I believe we cannot survive. So if your parents are able to teach you proper management of food, what is healthy food, how to eat, when to eat, what foods you need to eat first, and all that stuff, right? Going really into the healthy food space, then I believe you will develop a critical skill that is important for money, for relationships, and everything else, pretty much everything in life, which is having the capacity to control yourself, your desires, because we are driven by a lot of desires, right? And the moment you can learn to manage and control your desires from childhood age, right, you will be able to control any type of desire, no matter what is in front of you. And you will always be able to ask yourself, how does this serve me? Is this a good thing for me?
Sure.
Or is this a bad thing? Like, if I spend now $500 on a watch on Amazon, right, because I urgently want that and I want to splurge on my Christmas gift, this year, is this a good thing for me or not? What is my overall goal? If I want to grow my business, that's a stupid idea, honestly, right? Especially if you already have a watch. And if you have a phone, you don't need a watch, right? But if you are learning to manage your desires in accordance to your goals, I believe you will get much faster when it comes to your financial goals. You also speak about your caregiver conference. I'm curious about this one. Um, what are the financial and healthcare gaps, would you say, that caregivers and the families often experience?
So the statistics here in the US, I'm not so sure about Canada and the rest of the world, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's roughly the same. But most caregivers are women. Shocker. It's either the wife or girlfriend, it's the oldest daughter or only daughter. Now, let me just pause here and say plenty of sons and husbands are also, and uncles, etc., are providing care, and they do it. But unpaid caregiving has seemed to be a woman's job, and a lot of times women just step up to the plate. I have met women who had doctor husbands, and they did all the unpaid caregiving for their wives, or excuse me, for their mothers, and for their and I just was like, what? And they're like, oh yeah, we didn't hire anybody. It all came down to me. And I'm like,
Wow.
and you know why? They
Mhm.
had to save money. And I'm like, for what? Oh well, we couldn't, and it wasn't that they couldn't afford a caregiver, but there was this permission that we could not hire somebody to take care of his mother. Like, how dare you? Like, that's his mom. My mom loved you. You have to take care of her. And I just was like, whoa. And she worked full time, and she was raising her own kids, and she was going nuts, and she was in her 50s. Happy days, right? So what typically happens is that most women are having to take care of their family. So it could be their mother, it could be their father, it could be their in-laws. And women typically lose about 300 to $800,000 of income and investing potential during that time. If they're having, it's particularly if they're having to do it full time, because there are some women who are like, they're going to have to do more than just Family Medical Leave Act here, which is 12 weeks in this country. They're going to actually have to like not work for 2 or 3 years, and that's how they start losing the money. Now, some of them will say it's okay. I've got to take care of mom. I got to take care of my father, and I get it. Like sometimes this is just what it is. You're going to have to do that because we're also making the assumption that our parents or aging loved ones have the money. Many times they don't. And this impacts women, particularly even further if they get divorced or even if they're married, because about a third of all women retire in poverty. They don't have any
Wow.
money. They don't. They don't have a pension, or they can't access the pension. This happened to one woman. She was married to her husband. He died. And they were trying to ask for the pension because there was money in that pension to still pay the wife. And the company refused because she lived in another country. Why did she live in another country? She could not afford care in the US. So she went back to her native, and they would not transfer anybody internationally, even though they had proof that she was the wife, proof that she was the beneficiary. Nope, sorry, won't do it. So the only way she would have gotten that money is they would have had to sue the pension company. And they didn't have any money to sue the pension company.
My
Yep,
impression is
yep,
that
yeah,
there is a stigma almost when it comes to women and money. So it is almost like, and I'm kind of divided. I don't know where to stand at this point,
right,
but I just observe it that
right,
it is kind of expected from the woman that she does all the caretaking, whether it's the kids or the parents, right? It's kind of expected. You will do that, right, darling? Um,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
it is
yeah,
kind of like a barrier almost to normalize or to have a normalized view on a woman earning for every single hour or whatever care she brings, that she earns actually money for it. I feel there is a barrier, like
right,
a harsh one. And I'm
right,
not really
yeah,
sure whether it is a healthy direction that we would go towards if we started to demand being paid for caring for our parents, for example, because it will not stop there. And the voices are
right,
already getting louder when it comes to, oh, I'm already taking care of my kids for free, right? I'm not in the working force during that time, and I'm not even paid properly.
yeah,
So that might extend into this realm as well. And who would pay for that? If the
right,
state pays for you taking care of the children, who owns your children? I mean, they own them anyway, but they would restrict
mhm,
your access to your children then even more. So I'm kind of concerned whether this would be the right direction to calculate your labor directly with money? And is it only a problem that we women have?
Yeah, right. And so here's a workaround. And again, in the US is what's called long-term healthcare insurance. A long-term healthcare insurance can allow you to pay for an actual professional caregiver. Or if you want to get paid, you have to show proof of that on your taxes. And again, you can charge whatever you want if it's yourself, but with a paid, caregiver, you'll see what it is, whatever they want you to do. But so here's the problem is that a lot of caregivers are 50-ish, and if they have a healthcare, issue, like if they already have diabetes, if they already have a heart condition, if they already have may not qualify for long-term care health insurance, or they completely forget about it until they're 65 when it's going to be really expensive and you might not be able to get it at that point. So that's part of the thing in retirement homes and assisted living. If you have money, like you own a house, yay. You would have to sell that house and take all that money and then put it towards your care. You couldn't just say, oh, I'll just give that money to my kids, because the state will not allow that. There are plenty of state laws here that say, oh, no, if somebody's going to be paid for, their retirement living because no family member can take care of them, or it does require just more medical care, then the state will have to pay for it. So, and the state will say, then you must liquidate all your assets and you have to do that now. And that's what's done. I know it's chaos, and there's so many things to talk about the gaps, which is why I created my caregiver conference, because I'm not here to get into morality questions. I'm exhausted. I don't have time for that. But what I did want to do is give people an opportunity to understand that it is your health that comes first. Then you better look at the money, and then you better look at the caregiving options, which is why I created a health and financial and caregiving conference for the caregivers and their aging loved ones. Because if you don't know about the latest, or you don't know how you can get a policy or anything like that, then that's where you're at. And one of the cool things, I have one of my presenters, she's a health insurance expert. And if you are self-employed, she's like, well, if you have a policy for this, if your family member gets sick, you can get paid. And that's what I mean. That's when you have to be like, if you have a money brain and you realize you have children, or you realize you got to take care of people, and you have want a better plan than just shoving towels and blankets underneath the door because somebody's a smoker, then I would say, oh yeah, you got to do it in a way that's going to make it better for you. Come and learn. So the conference, I broke down to what I call the basics. So I actually have experts on financial planning, like how do you actually do this, whether you have children or you don't. How do you handle Social Security, Medicare, as well as, do you have health insurance, as well as long-term care? So that's kind of the basics market of the financial. I could have added a few more people, but I don't want to make it all money because it's boring. I mean, in my opinion, it's boring. You want to add more to it. So then I had people who were really talking about, hey, I'm a coach. This is how you eat better. Because as a former caregiver, my eating habits were horrible. I lived off junk food, and I paid for it dearly later.
Oh, yeah.
So I wanted to have somebody explaining about nutrition. I have actual caregiving experts, and I have somebody I'm really excited about who talks about being a social companion, because the loneliness is epic that aging loved ones experience. And it is also for the caregivers. They are so isolated. Oh, another Zoom online. Okay. And sometimes that's all you've got. But if you have an opportunity to go to a party, but you don't want to drive too late yourself, can you hire somebody who's like, I am so happy to see you, Ella. Let's go. Let's have fun. Let's go eat. Did you bring everything? I brought a few extra things. Let's go. We'll play music and we'll laugh and this prevents major depression. It reduces panic attacks, and it makes people feel loved because they actually found somebody who wants to go out. I mean, are you one of those people who doesn't, because I meet people who have ADHD. I don't even like to go out. It's too complicated for me. And I'm like, oh, are you an introvert or an extrovert? Well, I'm an extrovert, but I have to just kind of pick my small groups of people I can be extrovert. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Do you live nearby them? How often do you see them? Because that kind of isolation just weighs people down. Yeah, that's true. You don't have to maybe go to the grocery store anymore, but man, you're not going to have anyone to talk to. It is virtual because most caregivers are either at work, in a car, or at home. So I figured if you are a busy caregiver, it would make more sense to have you listening like it's a podcast, which is fine. Or you can actually, get in and start asking the questions, which is so day one's basically the presenters, and day two is the day that you get to ask your questions, because I want people to sit with it for a minute, like you get all this information, sit with it and see where your questions are. Because sometimes people say they're really good at, we've got all this money. I'm like, great. Do you know how to spend it appropriately for the care as well as for people's well-being? And then they're like, I thought my retirement money was going to take care of me. No, you probably want to have different money for that.
Yeah, there's so much that people don't
Yeah.
know. And the conference is specifically for the US, right?
Yeah, it's the US and Canada. I mean, anybody can listen in if they really want to join from Europe. But we are speaking about American stuff. So again, if that's what, people really want to know more about the American market. That's one of the things I've learned as a business owner, even though Canada is its own, healthcare system, it's different than the American. People still want to know what the heck we're doing because they want to sell to or go in business with Americans. That's what we do here.
Yeah, that's absolutely valuable when you actually have a target market. For example, as a business in America, you will benefit
Right.
from just about any area, whether it is health or fitness, wellness, or relationships, whatever you look at in the American culture and society, you will absolutely benefit from. You will get to know your avatar better, which we as businesses talk a lot about, right? And what I find interesting is that you say that caregiving isn't done by just one person. And what do you mean by that?
So when caregiving happens, it's really a family issue. And so about 100 years ago, maybe even 50 years ago, families here in the US, but also across the globe, they were much bigger. So you had, somebody, a mother, long before birth control, would have 8+ children that all made it to adulthood, which, people forget that. Like, well, we used to have families and they lived really close. They lived in villages, they lived on the same block. So there was always somebody to help with round the clock care, right? You always had somebody in most cases. But as we've gotten down to nuclear family, had less children, there's less ability for the children to take care of the aging parents, still work and still take care of your kids. So I have seen, teenagers and grandchildren be sent home, sent to grandma and grandpa's house, or, they have to go in the next room to take care of them or watch them as unpaid caregivers. And that builds up a lot of reluctance and resentment because nobody really wants to deal with that. But what will happen is that if somebody falls, an aging loved one can fall, it can be up to $40,000 US of out-of-pocket expenses. Why? Because there's going to be changes in your medical care. There's going to be changes in your house if you're living in one, or if you're living in your family's home. You might have to get admitted to a rehab center. And I haven't even mentioned the cost of surgery, medication, and hospital care. And that's where the money goes. And then people are like, what? And I'm like, yeah. If you fall, it's usually a broken hip or you smash your head or what, or break a rib, or it's not good. So, I try to remind people, you want to get on top of it. So my mother, before she passed and had Alzheimer's, my grandfather lived to be 101. And when
Wow.
he was about 94, 95, somewhere around that age, he was not walking very well because he was stiff. And that's not uncommon. But he was kind of hunched over and he wasn't walking that great. And he just had a cane and he refused to get a walker because a walker were for people who just couldn't walk. He could walk, he was just moving slow. So my mother had to just put him in the car one day, said they were going grocery shopping. Then she drove him to the walker store and he was like, what are we doing here? She's like, well, I think I need a walker and my back's hurting me. Can you help me go look for a walker? And he was like, I know you brought me here for me. And she's like, okay, well, whatever, let's go. And so he barely makes it into the walking store. And this guy, great salesman, knows a difficult client, was over there. How are you, sir? So nice to meet you. Hey, I noticed you're struggling. We have some options if you'd like to see them. And he put him in a walker that had wheels. And he didn't know there could be wheels on a walker. And he was like, whoop. And he was like cruising around the store and he was laughing, talking to the salesman, getting all this information. My mother just shut up and stood next to the register. And she's like, I'm buying it. And my grandfather was like, I'll buy it. And she's like, no, no, no. Allow me. I think this is a wonderful investment. It's fine, Dad. You can get dinner. Fine. And that's how she did it. That's how she did it. She literally put him in the car and drove him because she wasn't going to argue with him. And she knew how to do this. And thank goodness there was a male, because that's what he liked. He liked talking to men about products and services. That was him. That was just how he was wired. He didn't want to talk to a woman. And so my mother was like, I'm going to stay quiet and just quietly put it, give my credit card and move away. And
That
that's what she did. So but that's like, having to really know what you're trying to avoid. And the fact that he didn't fall at the house, we prevented a $40,000, medical expense. And I think that walker was $200.
that's for comparison, right?
Right. But I mean, like as a money person, I would think that, well, how much does the walker cost with wheels? $600? Deal. Let's go get it. Oh, it has bells and whistles. Let's go ring it up. I don't care. But that's me, like I'm more like, let's go for it. But a lot of people are like, I don't know, $200. Should we spend that on a walker? Do you really need it? And I'm like, oh. He was happy when he had it, and then he wanted to go outside more, and then he wanted to walk up and down the block a little bit more, and so that improved the quality of his life.
That reminds me of my grandpa. He's well over 90 now, and his bones are obviously getting weaker and weaker, and he
Yeah.
still walks, and he also refuses to get a walker. Like my grandma already on a walker, right? Because her
Right.
feet are just hurting so much, she just can't, right? But he, as a man, I think it's very, very difficult for men to give up that autonomy and
Yes.
to acknowledge that they can't do it themselves anymore. They cannot even stand. I think that's like almost emasculating to many men, especially if they have been major breadwinners or caregivers of the family. And my grandpa was such a person, having a lot of siblings, going through Second World War, and a lot of horrible stuff that they had to go through. He was always the one carrying everyone, right? And when you lose the ability to carry everyone, when you have built your identity around that, even, it's really hard, I believe.
Yeah. So it is, but see, like that's my mother knew, just to, clarify, that she understood the pride and the respect that my grandfather had. And she didn't want to like keep hitting the wall. So she just took him there and was like, and then he's like, I know you're here for me, and then she's like, oh, well, here comes the sales guy. And then she's, I mean, like she just knew that she needed to reduce her own stress by getting him a walker. And it was one of those little walkers that you can turn around, you can sit down if you're tired, which he didn't know existed. So he could just sit there and be like, oh, my back's kind of supported. I can sit here and I can roll around. And then he was fine. And sometimes that's just what you need. You just need the right person in the right space, and then you'll go get it.
Absolutely. You said before that many people don't really want to take care of their parents or the elderly. And this was actually quite surprising for me to see when I moved from Asia to Germany. Because for us, it was kind of very normal to take care of the older people. We have a lot of respect for the older people. So we also enjoy being around older people. I still especially if they cannot walk anymore and you have to carry them maybe, or do the cleaning and feed them, right? And that was very surprising for me to see in the Western world how banished almost elderly people become, very isolated. And I see a very deep correlation to, again, the parenting style that has established itself in the Western world, where parents strive for independence quite fast from their children. They send them to kindergarten very, very early. I was quite shocked when I still lived in Germany a couple of years ago that a new law was declared that moms were allowed to give away their babies even at 3 months, right? Which is like, I mean, who would do that? But still, I saw those babies in the kindergarten. So women, whether they want that or they are forced to do it or they choose to be forced to do it, they give away their children pretty quickly, which results in a disconnection between the parents and the children. And so obviously that child does not build that deep connection with the family or with the parents, specifically with the moms. And of course, if you don't have a connection with your parents, you don't want to take care of them, right? And especially if their parenting style has in some shape or form been abusive, you don't want to do any of that, of course. So I think to soften that development, we kind of need to also look critically at the root cause of it. Like, why don't you love taking care of your parents? I mean, they did when you were a baby. Isn't it natural that you now give back that favor or that gift that they gave you, even if it was maybe a different relationship or a difficult one? We need to critically look at that. Where is it coming from? And if we really want to, and I feel like a lot of wisdom is lost. Like when we lose connection to our grandparents or to the elderly, we forget about the things that we should never repeat, that has been done in their generation. And because you don't know what has happened, you will repeat those same stupid mistakes. Maybe not you personally, but you as a culture, you as a generation, you will tend to do even more stupid mistakes than their generation. And I'm kind of a very traditional when it comes to that. My mindset is still in the tradition over here, that this type of connection between parents, children, and the elderly is like a magical bond that keeps everyone safe on so many levels, that I feel it is everyone's almost duty, maybe, or I see it as my duty, to preserve that connection so that future generations have a chance on multiple levels. And also it creates a different kind of bond also when it comes to the financial mindset and your financial handlings of your life, right? Because you have the experience of your grandparents, right? Which is so different from your parents. Like, what can you learn from them? On the other hand, if you never know what they have done, how the world looked at their time, you will never learn what you can do for your future or for your current life.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, there's a lot to say. I will say that we have given more voice as a culture to trauma and how parents have not served us necessarily. And that's not a bad thing. But I do believe that we're giving birth to more and more sensitive children, and more parents are kind of like, "What do you want from me? I don't know. I don't understand. I like took you to the doctor. I took you here. I did this. I played with you. I talked to you. Oh, but you weren't supportive. What would you like support on? And so and then there's also what I call sometimes the collapse, this enmeshment, where it's a joke, but it's called failure to launch. Your kids don't leave the house. They're happy living in the basement, not paying rent and doing whatever they want. And, parents are like, what are we going to do here taking care of these kids? And it's like, yeah, that's a failure to launch, meaning your kids they're not even willing. Oh, I'm not going to pay $2,000 for an apartment and pick a major city. Of course it's a brand new build and all that jazz. But that's my point. That's a money conversation that has not been, sort of like, hey, I know you're used to living in the lap of luxury here, but when you start off, you're going to be in a tiny little place. It's not going to be the greatest, and you're going to have to figure out
was maybe 16 when my parents started giving out some little pocket money. But what would we do with that? Spend on sweets, obviously, right? We would not do anything smart with it. And so I was the worst person when it came to handling money, right? I was broke all the time in my teens, even later when I had my first jobs. Obviously, I took care of myself. I never had to starve or anything, but like money was not something that was around. I always thought if it's in my bank, I should use it probably because interest rates and all that stuff. I had excuses to use money, right? And when I became a business owner, everything had to shift. When I became a single mom, like radically had to change everything around money or you will not survive and your children won't either. So where do you see the future of your particular work heading, especially when it is also in connection with the caregiving landscape?
Yeah, so I purposely created this conference, and I know I'm a little bit of a going ahead in the pack, but people who know the caregiving market are like, "Oh my God, yeah, we need this." But I'm really like, for me, this conference, I'm going to do one every year. That's my plan for at least the next 5 years, and I want to lead. I want to lead and show people where they can go because technology can give you options. Like, people have more cameras and they're watching people, so but employers here in the US, a lot of them do not have what we call an employee sponsored paid benefit. So if they have to hire an actual care management company, so that they can actually have somebody manage the full-time care so they can continue to work and not be stuck in the middle going to all the doctor's appointments and all this other stuff. It's like, come on, that's a lot. Because seniors on average can go to a doctor 2 to 3 times a week. Oh my God. And you're assuming the doctor's working, full time. The other thing is taking loans from your investments is a temporary stopgap measure, and that's not going to stop. And that's why I'm hoping to inspire people to be like, yes, that is an option, but liquidating your entire investment account is not the plan. Let us look to see where there's better options for you and for your aging loved ones. And then also, I know that AI is going to be watching over a lot of our family members, and that's not always going to be good.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely think loneliness and depression and anxiety, because the pandemic really showed us where we did not have the workforce. So just FYI, more and more insurance companies and more hospitals that could not hire enough nurses are basically hiring one night nurse to watch over all of the patients. And there will be like one staff person, maybe two, that will actually be able to go out and address the sick patients at night, because they just don't have the workforce that they used to. So you're going to have somebody watching your parents or you in the hospital that will be on camera. And eventually, I think it'll just be an avatar. And that is really going to upset and really make some waves for people. Now, the people who are getting born now, the young little babies, are like, oh, this will be normal. But for us, we're going to be like, are you blanking kidding me that this is happening? And it's like, unfortunately, it's a hot yes. Yes, it is. So,
Yeah, I'm a bit scared when it comes to all the new technology that is coming at us, how much disconnection it will bring. Connection, of course, as well, and new possibilities and ways to create and develop and move forward and speed up processes. I absolutely love that part. But at the same time, how much addiction, illness, and disconnection it will also bring, I think will depend on how people again will manage themselves and what they will allow, right, in their lives. So I always try to remind myself to not blame anyone no matter what happens, but to always empower myself or remind me of the power that I have to decide what will enter my life and what will definitely not enter my life. So that's crucial.
Yeah. And I specifically have a social companion speaker on my panel because I know that they are gems in life, people who want to, connect. But for those of us who might struggle with connection, they're going to like unlock that mystery of how do you talk to somebody and feel heard? How do you actually show up and be supportive to somebody? They're going to like actually unlock those mysteries. It's because that's how we learn. That's how we used to learn in villages and in our families. We're going to actually have to hire an expert or have somebody with us. And then we're like, oh, I get it now. And it's like, yeah.
I will leave all the links to your socials and also this caregiver conference in the description and in the show notes. So if anyone is interested, please go in the description. They will find the links and you can get started. Thank you so much, Jeannie, for this conversation. It was so delightful and insightful to talk to you about these things. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.